All right, guys, thank you for joining for today's session number 21, mock anonymous interviews with the hiring managers. And today we have Ken Tolley. He's a QA manager at Y Media Labs and CEO at Kali.ai. Am I right, Ken?
Yeah, that's the company I co-founded.
Co-founded. Awesome. And Jeremiah Jones, he is a QA manager at Carrington Holding Company, right?
That's right. You nailed it, Evgeny. Thank you.
Awesome. And again, we have Arena. She's a volunteer. So please be welcome all our participants. And we have a brave candidate, number one. So what we're gonna do today, if you never been in our mock interviews before, so today we have a candidate who will be participating anonymously. He will be sharing his resume and he prepared just 2 questions. Tell me about yourself and tell us a little bit about your last project. And then Ken and Jeremiah, they will be going through this process as a regular interview as they do in their current companies. Quick disclaimer though, it is not a job opportunity event. It is a strictly educational event. And all of us, we represent only our sole opinions. We do not represent any companies here. So keep this in mind. And if you guys want to participate in the future as a candidate and be anonymously getting the feedback, which is very, very valuable, please join to our Slack channel. And we're going to publish the next event pretty soon. Or you can follow us on YouTube or in the mock interviews in the Meetup page. That's pretty much it. So we can start. The candidate, so today we have only one candidate. With one candidate, we're gonna have about 30 to 45 minutes. So like a regular first round of interview. I will be tracking the time, so, and in the end, guys, one more thing. Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have a short topic to discuss about how to progress your career from the individual contributor to a management position. So if you are in a software QA engineering position and you want to move to QA management, so we're going to cover this today as well. I think that will be interesting. Sounds good? I think should be
Excellent.
Good. Awesome. Thank you very much. And candidate number one, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for the opportunity. Shall I start sharing my screen?
Absolutely. Let me give you a permission to share the screen first, and you should be able to.
Yeah, now I can see. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. Yes.
So, candidate number one, please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about the position that you are looking and strive to apply.
Hi, everyone. This is candidate number one. So thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys and introduce myself. So I have around 15 plus years of experience in the software industry. Out of this 10 plus year, I'm working on the storage domain. And my recent company, my current company, it's a startup. I started when it was a less than 20 member team, and now it has grown to more than 1,500 people. So almost like 80x we have seen in last 7 years. And here my responsibility, I'm working as an individual contributor as a QA, but because I joined the company when we were very just less than 20 member team, I got the opportunity to wear multiple hats. So being a product manager, being a release managing the release, talking to the customer, mentoring the sales guys, mentoring, participating in the POC. So other than the QA, I contributed across multiple roles. Now coming back to just the QA. So QA, my main contribution is I'm leading 3 major solutions, which combinedly generating like 200 million plus revenue to the company and being used by 2000 plus enterprise customers. And during this time, I deliver more than 100 features, which are like end-to-end writing from the test plan, execution, hiring, mentoring folks. That is all about me. Prior to that, in the previous company also, I work in the similar domain, storage and backup recovery. So that is a short introduction about myself. Thank you.
So candidate number 1, can you tell us what are you looking for the most in your next role?
Yeah. So during this time, especially last 7 years, I said I have been involved in interacting the customer, hiring, mentoring the people. So mostly I will say like 60% time I'm as an individual contributor, but 40% time I'm leading, I'm collaborating across the team, mentoring people, helping getting them unblocked, or in some short, the focus is to get the job done. Right. And this is a kind of leadership role and which I enjoy and I thrive there. So I'm looking forward to go into the similar capacity where I can lead a team and contribute more and make a bigger impact. And I'm open for both if it is a managerial role or it's a technical director role. So here I am working as a senior tech lead / equivalent to senior technical manager. But I'm working in the capacity of technical director, and mostly I'm whenever I'm taking any initiative, I'm mostly talking to the director or senior director people.
Okay. So unless you have a question, Jeremiah, I would say, what sort of working environment, maybe industry or cultural climate is actually the most important to you right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I will go in the reverse order. So first is the what kind of working culture. So I'm a quality person. So I like to work where the quality is the most important factor for the company, and where I can raise my voice and where my voice get heard. So that is the first thing. Now industry, I'm open. I have been working in a storage, so I want to try something new. And high level idea is which has a more impact. For example, couple of industry which I am exploring are like autonomous driving, another is ML AI, and third is the data analytics, because I see a huge impact of data getting analyzed and generating business values.
Great. Have you had opportunities to do a lot of data analytics with your current company or previous company?
No, unfortunately not. So here I'm on the storage. We are sitting on a lot of data. So I have seen that data sitting idle, and that is what motivates me. That why so much? It's like a gold mine we are not using. But there are companies like Upstart, Google, LinkedIn. These are the companies who are using the data and they are making a huge business out of it. So that is my motivation, that I should contribute where we are using the data. And this will also give me an opportunity to learn more.
So I heard you. Yeah, I wanted to butt in for just a moment because I heard you mention, as far as the kind of company that you want to work at is one that it makes quality a focus and a priority in the organization. Have you ever been at a place where you were the one needing to make that a realization at a company where quality maybe wasn't a central point of focus? And in your experience, what tools or methodologies have you used to express the value of quality in your organization?
Yeah,
a lot of questions there. So
yeah, thanks for this question. So basically, I won't say that there is no company who don't focus on the quality, but it's a very good balance between the release timeline and quality. So what happened many times because of the contractual commitment, or there is a press release, the management has to take a call whether they want to delay the release or they want to get ready to sacrifice on the quality. And that time it is really challenging for quality person to go back, push back and say, hey, it's okay to sacrifice on the press release or pushing the deadline. Even if the customer is asking, we can go and convince them. But it's not good to sacrifice on the quality because it's going to hurt both customer as well as the company. So at the end, it's a management decision because they have a high level picture. But what I'm looking forward that at least they should be open to hear and listen what is the pain points, because that gives you the transparency in the system. At the end, yes, if there's a customer commitment and they are okay with little bit lower quality because of some reason, it's okay to ship and we can always come back and patch. That's how in Agile we work. But yeah, my whole intention is it should be hard and quality should be the focus. We may not be able to make it every time. We might miss some time and we can catch up on that. Yeah.
So quality should be a focus and you recognize its importance. But if you're working with engineering managers or product owners who don't recognize that importance, what sort of tools have you used to enable the product to have a high level of quality, even under that condition? Or what tools have you used to convince that there needs to be a shift in that thought process?
Yeah, that's exactly what we are doing right now. So in the recent quarters, we have very high pressure to release multiple features. We have released like more than 200 features per release in last couple of releases. And because company was growing very rapidly, team was growing. So we missed a couple of issues, especially related to like scalability, performance, and integration testing. And now we are getting field issue escalation, and suddenly that becomes the top priority for the management as well. That why we are getting so many issues. Our quality is always was the top, but suddenly the escalation has gone up. So what I did, I went through all the field issues happened in last 4 months and came up with 1,000 top field issues. And after analyzing, we find a pattern that why this is coming. And that was a very good point when I created a presentation and showed to all the directors that, see, we are missing the test case itself. And the reason for that was very simple, because people were over focusing on validation that, okay, I built my feature, it worked as expected, and now we are good to release. They were not focusing where it can fail, right? The QA mindset should be the break, not to make it. And that's what is missing. And that's why many times we are missing the test cases. But that means that for some of the field issues, we don't even have a test case. So as a QA, I personally feel it that means we could not even think of it, right? And then we had a next level. So I took this initiative in my current company and say, okay, I take this challenge and I will fix this. And how I went through this, after 1,000 field issue analyzing, I found that pattern that first category is the test escape. That means we don't have a test case. And the reason for them is that because so many people are getting hired, they do not understand if we are following the microservice architecture. And there is a dependency between different services. Plus the product itself is very, very complex now. So it's very obvious for any new guys to not to understand the nitty-gritty of that. And whatever test case they are writing, they are based on the PRD, and it's their best effort. I'm not saying that they are not doing a good job, but they need to be educated, right? If they are missing something, somebody need to overlook and find it. And that's how I introduce a new test planning review process where we ask, okay, all the senior folks who are in the system for a long time, especially director level, they should be in the review meeting. Without their approval, the test plan should not go to the next level. And that really helping. The second part I introduce here is, rather than one person, there has to be multiple owner for the same test plan. So at least 4 people are responsible. So I learned this technique from the Japan. So how they do, if one person is testing, after he did the complete testing, then same component goes to the another person. He is going to do another, then third person. So once it goes through 3 cycles, the chances of leaving a bug is very, very less. So we don't have any that luxury in US because we are working in a really fast-paced environment. But I say if 4 people come together in a room and say we all are going to review the test plan thoroughly and it's our responsibility, then definitely we will find more and more test cases in-house. And once we execute, we will definitely find those bugs in-house rather than in the field. So I try to left shift, and all developers, engineering managers, everyone was on the same page and they agree that this process is really going to help. The only challenge here is to find the timeline for that 1 hour review meeting, because all the director level people are involved, right? And they are already over busy. So that is the one challenge, but it's like investment. If you invest 1 hour now and reduce even if one bug to the field, that will save your time. I hope that answers.
Yeah. Jeremiah, you want to ask the next question?
Sure. So I heard a little bit. I heard around multiple owners of test planning, and in your experience, are those owners all QA, or are there owners within engineering, product, or UX? Or I just want to needle into that concept because what we do is very collaborative in nature, right? And so just want to hear what your experience is with working in that way.
Right. So I have put enough thought into that. And if we go with the QA only, QA has a breaking mindset, but sometimes they miss on the design side because they don't understand what is the design, and when developer build, what is the assumption he build with. And if we take only developers, then they will only go with the validation part. So it has to be a mix of both. So what I did, I created 4 roles here. The first was the subject matter expert, or the QA, as that who is working on that feature. He is going to go through the PRD, understand the design document, and with his best knowledge, he is going to come forward with the test plan. Now the second is going to be a team lead or the developer lead. Okay, he has a high level understanding that what feature they are shipping, what is the limitations, both design point of view and both from the assumption point of view, that okay, maybe this release they are not able to make it, so next release they will fix the other part. So because many times if it's a complex feature, it goes into the phases. The third person is the QA lead. The QA lead is the owner of multiple components, and he understands how the dependency matrix work. So if you are testing feature A and if it has dependency on feature B, then he can help you there. The second part, because he is involved in multiple components, he also aware that what changes are going on the other side of the table, right? So he can fill that communication gap problem. The fourth person is the director. His director comes from the development, and his job is to challenge the design. So many times that was another thing that, for example, if somebody say, we need to carry out the performance testing. What was missing? What is the goal of performance testing? How much performance or how much skill you want to take your product to, right? And when QA was asking, they didn't have any clear answer, or they didn't have enough knowledge to challenge the design that, okay, this design won't scale up to this level, right? But because director, he is more knowledgeable and expert of that area, he has that knowledge and he can challenge the design. And that's the way we found a bug, as well as the developer will get to learn that, okay, his design is not scalable. Right. So these 4 different people with different role, and all of them have a different responsibility. That a technical director, he can, or director can miss functional. That is okay because there are other people, but his focus should be on the design part. That if performance or scalability, design related issue any comes, that means he didn't do a good job there, right? Or he missed the part. So it's like 4 people and everyone has their own expertise. And now if they are trying to hammer the system, the chances are very less that we are going to miss something.
So slightly different topic. In your company, did you guys have to make adjustments, particularly when the pandemic came around, and have to figure out how to deal with people working remote?
Not much, actually. It was very smooth. Yes, there were changes, but it was very smooth. We didn't have much challenge here. Because before also, like couple of people used to do work from home remotely, and personally in the team, like I myself used to do once or twice a week. So it was kind of like hybrid model earlier, but now it's like 100%.
So you've had experience having to deal with remote teams, maybe offshore teams, in addition to on-site teams at the same time?
Yeah. So because I myself was from like last 4 years, I'm managing team geographically distributed in 3 different continents in different time zone. So I don't see any difference now and then because I was already doing that job. The only difference I see is that earlier when I used to go office, there was less number of meetings because an office colleague you can directly on the lunch table or coffee table you can ask a question. Now I have to ping him, wait for his response. So it's more formal now.
Great. So as you look at potentially taking a role that's at a management level, can you describe to me what management means to you? What is it to be a manager? What is that role from your perspective?
Okay, so there are 3 major category. I divide this role. One is the people management, where the manager job is to keep the momentum of the team. If somebody is not happy, whatever the reason, just make sure there is no conflict. They are happy. They are all in sync, and their goal is aligned with the company goal. That is the first job. The second job is to enable them to do their job, whatever they are doing. If they need any resources, any knowledge, any kind of help, whether in the company or from outside the company, let's say third party, if we are working with Amazon or Microsoft, licensing is any kind of help, he should be able to do. And the third thing is to help them in collaboration. So many times, I have seen in my previous company, like manager doesn't help you to collaborate. They say, okay, you go and do whatever you want, but they don't coach it. So what I see, if you coach your subordinate a little bit. I have mentored in my capacity one guy. We hired him from a college directly, and we were looking for a lead position. And my goal was that I want to make him a lead in next 1 or 2 years. Now it's up to his speed, how fast. So how I went, first I explained what is the problem, what he is working on. Once he was comfortable with that, then I started giving little opportunity to him. Let's go talk to that guy. He was not comfortable. So I said, okay, let me go with you and I will start the conversation and then you take over. And that's how he started doing conversation with the other team member. Sometimes he was wrong. So I said, okay, it's okay. It's okay to make mistake, right? We all are learning. And that's the way after like 1.5 or 2 years, he is leading a whole team now. So in my a good manager means, or rather than manager, I will call a good leader is who is creating more leaders. So that is another, because that is going to help in the long run in the career path. So those are the 3 categories I will go with.
Very good. Jeremiah?
Yeah, no, I like that very much. And, leaders, good leaders anyways, make leaders beneath them. And how exactly do you build those relationships when it's, not talk about, so like in your experience, like is it you're only talking about the technical and what tickets need to be done, or what other activities do you participate in order to help build a relationship between either a direct report or a peer?
Okay, so like older days, we used to go for a soccer. So that was one very good activity, some soccer. Then we have this gym. So we used to go for workout as well. So that's how I started building my relationships with seniors as well as with the colleagues. But now in pandemic, especially, we don't have that luxury. So how we do, one thing is for the team outing once in a while. The second thing on a personal level, how like have a one-on-one, and one-on-one just talk about the person, what he like, don't like, personal, what is going on, can I help somewhere, or share my own experience. So many times, like one of our guy, he was buying a home. So I said, okay, I have gone through that phase, so I can share my experience. And that's the way you can connect.
How would you describe your leadership style? Can you characterize that in any way?
Yeah, so my leadership style is to do the job first. So when I started for example, this new college grade, when we hire, so first thing, it was a completely new project. I uh, like I took that project because I was not aware anything. I was like totally new to that project, but I contributed as a leader, and we hired this guy. So it was a learning for both of us. So first I made my own hand dirty. I learned that project. I created a wiki, step-by-step guide, and then I hand over slowly to him. So that's what I have learned from my manager as well. That very first thing, he do his hand dirty and he explain us, like, for example, when initially days, the product was just started, there was no PRD, no documentation, right? So what he used to do on the whiteboard, he used to explain, okay, this is the how it is gonna be look like, and just think from 1 year from now. Okay, today we are just working on, let's say, if you play a chart on the graph, and this is a, let's say, A, B, C, D, E, F, this 6 block. So he used to explain, these are the 6 blocks going to happen. Today we are working on block A and B only, but in future C, D, and E, F will come. So think from that point of view when you are writing the test plan or talking to the developer. Same thing I take here. When I talk to them, first thing I understand myself, what is the problem? And then I try to help them. So rather than pushing them to go and do the job, my style is let's work together. And my job is to unblock you whenever you need any help. And I may be wrong many times. So I give an open forum. Okay, I may be wrong. You correct me. If you are wrong, I will correct you. So it's a teamwork.
Have you ever had the unfortunate experience of having somebody work with you that isn't performing? And what steps have you taken to help rectify that?
Yeah. So fortunately, we did not have any problem where people were not performing. But we have a situation where the perception was this, that person is not performing. And the reason was we hired for a role A. And because we needed him in the QA, so I borrow his like couple of months that, okay, let me take his work in this role, and that will help him to understand the product. I will coach him on the domain, on the product, and then the return, I will get his help in the test plan execution. But actually he was got hired for another role. So eventually, because he was not contributing for the role he was hired, there was a perception in the team that, okay, he's not performing, he's not leading, he's a very senior person. And when I came to know, I quickly jumped and I said, no, it's not his fault, it's my fault, because I was giving him tasks which I was looking forward, and he is learning. So please do not judge him based on his contribution to the role he was hired. It's totally my mistake if you take it that way. So it was not that issue. And now to come your question, if let's say one person is not performing. So first issue I consider is during the hiring. Did we make a mistake, right, while hiring a person? So it's not his mistake. I will say it's our mistake as well, right? And now second, if we say we did our due diligence while hiring and we don't see any problem in the hiring and all the 5-6 committee members say yes, that means something is missing. Either same thing like perception, our perception is, oh, this guy is not performing, or second way, he's not enjoying the work. So the very first thing I will go with a one-to-one conversation, that what he enjoy or what he is not enjoying. So in my current organization, there was one guy. It's not that he was not performing, he was performing, but he was in earlier company, he was a leader. He was leading the team. And in the current organization, he was not leading. So my manager also said that this guy was a lead in his previous organization. And here also we hired him as a lead, but he's not leading the team. He's just doing the individual contributor, and there he is doing a good job. But whenever it comes to lead or taking an initiative, he's hesitant. So I talked to him that what is the reason you are not able to spoke or raise your voice? And he was say, okay, I'm totally new. I don't have confidence. Product is complex. What if I make a mistake? I say, it's okay. If you don't have information, first learn it. You can come to me, ask me. Still, if you feel that, okay, you might be wrong, it's okay. But if you want to speak, you will never be right. Right. So it's okay to go and let me know what interest you are, and I will give you the same project. For the couple of months, you might, because we all need, always we don't have a luxury to work what we want. So in a couple of months, maybe you have to sacrifice and work what is required, but eventually I will give you what you want to work. So don't worry for that part. But I have seen your LinkedIn interview feedback, everything. You was a lead, and he said, yes, I was leading a team. Then why you are not showing here? What is missing? How can I help you? Then he said, okay, there are so many senior guys, so I feel like and you are already there, so I come to you and then you take it. Yeah, I will. I am always there, but my job is to enable you. And eventually he improved.
So that's great. That's always a good story. But if I understand you correctly, you've not had the experience of having to manage someone out of the organization or let someone go or sort of deliver the news that they were going to be let go because the company was laying folks off or anything like that?
No, fortunately not yet.
Okay. So if you don't mind, Jeremiah, I'll shift back a little bit. Do you feel that there's a difference between mentoring and coaching? And can you describe that difference?
Yes. So there is a difference. The difference is very minor. Coach is someone who is like in our schools, right? The teacher come on the whiteboard and they are going to teach you what to do, what not to do. Mentor who is going to give you assignment, and who is like coach. Coach is like a spoon feeder, I will call him. Their job is to make you learn. Mentor is not going to make you learn. Mentor is going to give you assignment, and you go and ask him, okay, here is my blocker and I need your help, and then he will unblock you. So in case of mentor, the person has to drive. In case of coaching, it's like coach responsibility to push you continuously, motivation, right? So that's what my understanding is.
Okay. Jeremiah?
I'm just looking at your resume and I see, a wealth of technical experience, and I'm curious. I know in my experience, I've had to actually push back on leadership on, we want performance testing and having to reflect the value of that work versus some of the other work. What decisions like that have you had to make in your experience when you're a leader wanting something that maybe they don't understand the full value of, and obviously that's going to take resources away from other work that you may find valuable. So as far as that decision-making process, I just wanted to hear a little bit about what steps you would go through to make a decision of, performance or functional or integration, or, how do you make those decisions in your team today?
Yes. So when we started, like first was the top priority, performance and scalability. Nobody, like developer, was not even looking into it. And the simple excuse was that right now we don't have time. And when customer are going to reach to that level, that time we will come back and fix it. So sometimes it's a negotiation. If it is a very basic issue that basic performance is very bad, then I used to push that, okay, we are going to hit it on a first 10 customer. Based on, so here I used to talk to the product managers and sales guy and get like customer environment, like what customer is using. And that used to give me a data point that, okay, this customer is using, for example, 100 terabyte, right? 100 terabyte space they are using. So if you are supporting only 10 terabyte, definitely first 10 days you are going to have issue. But if we are good up to 200 terabyte, then for petabyte we can wait. So it's a negotiation. And like test plan, whenever I created a test plan always like up to the mark. It has all the performance. So second trick which I used to have, that once I have a detailed test plan, I say, okay, only 70% we are supporting, 30% is still missing. So it's a missing feature. So it used to look bad. Like then they say, okay, this 30% is not even applicable in phase one. We will handle it in the next phase. I say, okay, I agree, but can you take 3% out of it? And sometimes it's a negotiation. Okay, 30 doesn't look good. 20 we can push to the next release. Out of 10, we can take 3 or 4 use cases for you. So it's like negotiation based. I used to take something, but yeah, based on the customer data, because that is the proof point. that if customer is not using, then we need not to invest right now. Yep.
All right. Ken, you got another question?
I do.
Awesome.
So here's the tough one. What project have you worked on that you might characterize as a failure or you're unhappy with the outcome with?
Okay, that's a great question. So one project I worked, I won't call it a failure. It was a learning opportunity. So we were carrying out the performance testing, and we started like we wanted to save money to the company. So actually two projects I will talk. So one is this. So we wanted to save money to the company, and what happened? We end up using the virtualized hardware like VMs and all that. And we created the setup and we invested like 7 days to fix all the issues. And after 7 days also, when we took the numbers, developers say that these numbers are not repeatable. I won't waste my time because I don't rely your setup. It's a virtual setup and there are so many issues. If you want me to work on your performance number, you should have a repeatable number. And for that, you need to have a dedicated isolate environment. And that was one, I will call it a failure, but it's not a failure because it gave us a lot of learning, because during the debugging of virtualized, we learn a lot. And now we know that, okay, next time if somebody needs, we need an isolated environment, because in any performance testing, we should not carry on the shared resources. And as part of that learning, this time when we took the performance testing, we wanted to do on the real hardware, but we took that chance. Okay, this time again we are going to on the shared, but we had all the learning from past, so let's put them. And this time it works very well. So we saved the cost, and last time whatever we spent 1 week, that learning helped this time.
Okay, that's good. You've been functioning in software for about 15 years. So you've probably kind of experienced that transition from waterfall development to agile. What do you think some of the biggest challenges for assuring quality while making that transition? And what have you done to try to make that work a little bit better?
Yeah, so in waterfall method, one thing was very sure that once you have the product, it is like final product. And now you can go and get it fixed. So there is no like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And agile, the total feature or complexity is same, but we have reduced the scope. So rather than earlier, we used to have, let's say 3-month cycle, now 1 month, 3 cycles are there. So one advantage is you can focus more on the small changes rather than waiting till the end. So it's a left shift. We can start testing early. On the negative side is that we have to do a lot of regression testing, because every month you have to do your own testing plus regression testing. Though automation has helped it, but in my personal opinion, I think many times that we are not getting enough time to break. Most of the time we are running regression, doing feature testing, and very little time we do for the monkey testing or ad hoc testing. In waterfall method, because we used to have a long runway, we used to keep some time for ad hoc testing where you just go and do bug bash. Now that time has reduced. Now to come to your question, how do we address it? So the only way I can say is automation. More automation we build, more time we can save, and that time we can spend on the ad hoc testing.
So knowing that time is typically a big constraint, how do you prioritize those most important things, or the things that you think are going to have the largest impact? Obviously, there's some validation, some testing, but how do you decide with the time that you have is the most important, and then how do you express that to the team? Like, here's what we're going to cover and why.
Right. So one thing is very simple. Like when we create issue in the Jira, so we have different field. Like first is your priority, is it a blocker feature or it's a critical feature. Then second, we have like something called customer commit. So we have those labels, and based on the labels, we go, okay, these are the top priority features we have to ship. We like hard commit, we can say that we have to make it by this date, so there is no sacrifice. Now, if there is no sacrifice, that means on the testing front also, they should take the priority. Now, within that, if you, let's say we have 100 test cases and we see that we don't have enough time and we won't be able to make all 100, and because it's a hard commit, we have to ship the product. So there, then I talk to the PM that what customer is looking on when we are releasing, are they going to put into the production, or we have some breathing room there? And the second thing, are they looking for performance, or they are looking mainly for a functional? So many times what happened, because of the contractual commitment, customer is not going to put into the production on the day one. They want the demo, and because their quarter is closing, financial terms and all that, right? So they need something working, which they can showcase, they can use, or they can play around to test the system. So during that, then I go through the test case and say, okay, performance is this, can take the back sheet. We can come back, fix it, and patch customer at the customer side. But functional, there should not be any blocker or any genuine bug which customer install and start using, and day one is it's not working or something. So let's go with all the functional, and performance scale can wait for some time. And that's how I prioritize. And second is, in the worst case, deprioritize the automation. That, okay, whatever automation has, let's hold with this, and rather than building more automation. And the third thing is, if developer has some time, then I take some help from them as well.
Good. Jeremiah, do you have another question?
Just if he has any questions for us. We're running about 11:41, and wanted to find out if our QA candidate one wanted to ask any questions of myself, or I'll put Evgeny or Ken on the spotlight as well.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. So first question is, like, I'm right now working as a senior technical lead, senior technical manager, I am leading 3 teams here. When I say I am leading a 3 team, it's not like managerial role. So on the technical side, I lead them, I help them. So I'm responsible for these 3 solutions or 3 product and their team. Now, when I am looking outside for a job, unfortunately, not many company has these kind of role. Either they are like individual contributor, or they are as a manager. So mostly manager is doing. So I'm kind of hybrid between manager as an individual contributor. So how do I position myself? Because from career point of view, like my current company, as I said, I am working on a technical director capacity. My promotion can happen anytime. But when I'm applying outside, I don't see that career growth and as an individual contributor plus leadership on technical side in QA. And when I'm applying for managerial role, technical manager, that time I'm getting a pushback because on paper, I don't have a manager title. So if you can help me there, that would be great.
Sure. Do you want to take a crack at that first, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I don't mind, because I think that when I think about what a manager does and what a technical leader does, those are 2 separate roles. And when you have a hybrid role, I think focusing on what you feel like you're going to have the biggest impact on will provide you the most value. People management is the route that I chose, but I also work with folks that are also technical leaders, but their titles are more in line with like principal or architect. They're somebody who does mentoring and empowering those around them, not because they're a people manager, but because they know the value in that collaborative work and the nature of that. Whereas a people manager is doing some of what you touched on, those one-on-ones, and instead of doing the work that I want to be doing, in other words, the hands-on testing and building out frameworks and the coding, is looking and finding those individuals that want to do that work and empowering them to do that. And then, collaborating with them throughout, a project that we've empowered them to take on that maybe is outside of their comfort zone, but it's something that I've done before. Would you want to add to that at all, Ken?
I would say it can be very difficult to make that transition. Titles within one organization often map to different roles in another organization. And so the challenge really is that resume screening, that initial conversation, they're looking for something that says, quote unquote, manager in it. And so on your resume, you actually have, senior lead technical manager. I would look at maybe massaging how that's described. If the characteristics that and the responsibilities that you had qualify as a manager or a technical manager, maybe don't put that as a lead, like in the title there, or make sure you characterize that you are managing a team towards a particular objective. You know, in my case, I do people management and I do highly technical things. And the way I often look for a role that I want to have and the way that I sell myself is to characterize, I have all these technical capabilities, and I will help, you know, bring up a team, get them to a place they need to be, whether that's the manual testing or automation. And often I will apply that technical skill that is outside of that team to empower and support that team with tools, resources, or bringing in other technical resources that support that team. And so you leverage your experience and capability for the things that the team you're going to manage or going to lead lacks, right?
And that's a great point, because there's
characterize, you know, that as the role you want.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Kim, but you said something that resonated with myself, and that is know your blind spots. Like, if you know that there are things you're not good at, then you can hire for those and work with those and collaborate with those folks that are better at those things. And so I think the more self-awareness that one has of their own expertise and skill set can really benefit a team and bringing that team up when you can hire for that missing gap or being able to provide it, like Ken was saying, you know, if he has technical expertise outside of that QA realm but it's a development type tool that QA can leverage, then, you know, that's an awesome win.
And that's also why I go back to that very early question I asked you, what are you looking for in your next role? So if you can characterize that well, that is how you find the companies that are looking for you. Mm-hmm. That is how you get past a specific simple title of manager or lead or something like that, is you describe, you know, I want to go into this type of team. I want to have this type of organization. I want to have this type of impact on the next organization that I go to. That's something sometimes you can squeeze into the resume. It's certainly something you can put in the cover letter. And it is great when you get to the interview process, because by the time you get there, they kind of have a sense of who you are and what you want. And they've already done some assessment as to whether or not that's something that's a good fit.
Yeah. Guys, I have a suggestion. Let's do this thing. Let's give a feedback first.
Sure. Yeah.
And then candidate number one, QA. Then let's go with your question. I think that would be more productive then.
Okay.
So
no problem.
Ken, maybe you want to go with what went well and
Sure. Happy to. So a lot of what you had to say is very good. Technical skills, driving projects, teams. I would suggest that for some of your answers, you were very good about saying, well, I have 3 points, or you broke it down to 3 things you were thinking of. Whenever it's possible, I would suggest you use something like that, where you can say, you know, well, I had this experience. I want to point out these 3 things, and then you tell your story. That helps structure your communication, and that comes across quite well. The things you had to say about leading teams and helping people grow and sort of addressing people who are maybe struggling in their role, and particularly the sort of egoless approach to saying, well, I'm not going to assume it's their problem. I'm going to assume, you know, I have some responsibility, and let me see if I can approach this in the right way. That is absolutely fantastic. That's really showing empathy. And you can even state, well, I'm empathetic through their position. Therefore, you know, I'm going to try to do what I can, right? Like that's a very good quality in any sort of leadership. That's what everybody wants in colleagues and team leaders. That's great. And that's always a good thing to emphasize. And having stories of experience that you can speak to that's spot on. That's really, really good. Let's see. What else we thought did really well? Prioritization. You seem to be able to break problems down, come up with novel solutions. Sounds like you don't have much trouble managing up. Sounds like you don't have too much trouble kind of recognizing their limitations and then building a case that requires collaboration to get past those problems, which I think is great. And you also sound like you're highly collaborative. You expressed all of those things quite well, and I thought they were pretty fantastic. Jeremiah, you have some kudos there.
Yeah, those you definitely, hit the nail on the head there. I know that I like working with empathetic leaders and also work on that myself and understanding where people are coming from and always assuming folks' best intentions. So yeah, definitely great work on the collaborative nature and prioritizing the work. One thing that well, yeah, that's the positive. I'll wait on any other feedback for the moment.
Yeah, also the goal setting. You're helping others set goals. Super nice, really good.
Yeah, I know that goals are a big part of how I drive my team, and those goals are really through inquiry, which it sounds like you already do, right? So you're asking questions about what do you want to do, and if we can empower you to do that in this organization, let's do that. But then let's also look at in 3 months, are you doing that? Or, have you made the time to do that? I know one of the triggers that when I hear people say I don't have enough time, like, what are you doing to make the time? I can help unblock and give you time, but ultimately it's a personal decision to say, I want to do this learning because I know the value in it for not only myself, but the organization. And I think that, yeah.
So in terms of some things you can improve, this is around language. It's not always conscious in people's minds, but particularly when you're looking for a role in leadership and especially management, as much as possible, you want to describe, your team, what your team collaborated on, what your team was able to accomplish, what we did together, as opposed to I did this, I did that, I told this, I told that. That transition from an individual contributor to a manager is very much about what the team is able to accomplish and much less about what you personally accomplished, even though you're a big part of that happening. And that really comes through in communication. So that's something I would highly recommend you practice doing. Even if you personally contributed a ton of things, I would say something like, oh, well, I did this for the team, I did that for the team, and then we were able to accomplish these things, right? We collaborated in this way. I empowered this person to solve this aspect of the problem, or I gave someone guidance and they resulted in something else. We did a little bit of that, but when you're going for that management role, I would try to squeeze that into almost every example in some way.
Yeah, and definitely reduce the I's. And it's not that you aren't contributing, and it's not that you are doing things. It is when hiring for leadership skills that I look for are folks that are saying we and team, capital T, and you're part of that team, absolutely. But as the leader, we put them on the pedestal, and when they do fall off, we also, own that. And it sounds like you already do some of that, when there's a failure, you mentioned quite specifically that, that's on you. And doing that at the C levels though, can be risky because now you're saying that, yes, I empowered my team to try something new and experiment and didn't work out well, even though we may have time boxed it. And ultimately it was my decision that, that's where I want to hear I's and my is when there are failures, and when there are successes, it's all the team, 100% of the time. And it's, I think the first few years of management, that was a very tough lesson for me to figure out.
Yeah. And again, it's the importance of that. The language is important, but also the recognition that you will not be an individual contributor nearly as much in a management role, or that needs to be such a small part of what you do in comparison, is important. A big failure in a lot of managers is that they get promoted into management because they were really good at the job they were doing beforehand, and they don't know how to shine other than the things that they were doing before that they got the constant praise for. And so that transition to management really kind of hurts that significantly. And their tendency is to keep doing those things they did best, or take work away from subordinates who have less experience. I know the best way to do this, so I'll just jump in and do that. And that's a thing that everybody's going to be worried about when they bring someone in as a new manager. That's always a concern. It doesn't matter what field of focus they have, they all do the exact same thing unless they're kind of prepared for that transition. So I would say if you don't feel like you've done that a lot, where you've stepped back then get more experience doing that so that you have those stories to talk about. And if you do feel like you've done that well because you've had to delegate, then make sure you emphasize that as well, because that's what they're going to be concerned about. The other thing I think to be concerned about is you apparently have never had an employee that didn't work out. You haven't managed anyone out of the company. You never had to deliver someone the bad news that it's time for them to move on and pursue their life's work elsewhere. That's a red flag for some companies, not necessarily because they're bad or toxic, although some of them are. But if you haven't had that experience, I would highly recommend that you find some resources. Like I don't know what resources you currently use for management or leadership, but I would suggest reading about that particular thing so that you have an answer to that question. I haven't had this experience, but is my understanding that, ... right? And this is what I would do to facilitate that in a way that ideally leaves the employee not necessarily feeling wronged in that situation. That is a highly critical skill in management because companies get sued.
And it's absolutely true, and I would say it's a bit of a yellow flag, and knowing that it's a position you're wanting to go into, but it is something that we deal with, and it's not fun, and it is painstaking, and rarely have I had the experience of it actually retention. It's typically, here's a performance improvement plan, and because through the one-on-ones, it should never be a surprise, and whether people are doing great or whether people are not doing great, and at what level and why you're saying that. And I've, even in my work today, we have these conversations, and it's a hard conversation to have. And I think when people are not performing, they know it, and their peers know it, and your team knows it. And then your team feels that, well, if they're not performing, why should I? And so, and it is really, it can be very toxic to a team. When a team sees a leader addressing it, though, and bringing it to the table, people will often say, "I'm okay. You're right. I'm not even going to do the performance improvement plan. I'm out of here." And so, definitely, I think can hit the nail on the head. Go do some reading around that. I know some authors that I refer to and have had some of those experiences. So,
yeah, and again, if you have not had that experience, or if you have a personal experience that you've ever had where someone had the perception you weren't performing well and they did something to help you turn that around, those are useful tools. As Jeremiah said,
yes,
if you're not checking in with, sorry, if you're with your lead, if you're in your context, you haven't necessarily described checking in with individuals on your team and providing that type of feedback. You describe sort of helping them out, but not necessarily giving them sort of constructive criticism. So that would be the other thing I would add in. So you were going to say?
Yeah. So I have one example here. The guy was not doing great job, but I would say that I helped him, but it was not a hard discussion with me, because he was reporting to my manager. So my manager had a hard discussion with him, but I dig down in the problem. So what we asked him to do the performance testing, and he was a PhD scholar, very talented guy. So his habit was to go deep down, and he used to lost in his own words. And like if you go after a week, he will say, "Oh, I am still debugging." While the culture here was, if you are not able to finish it, like let's say half a day, just move on, get help, and delivery fast, so delivery focused. So it took some time. I had a conversation with him. I explained him that this is not the style work here, because here people are expecting to deliver much faster. I understand you came from the research where you can spend like days to find out the answer, but here answer is not important. Here important is you get whatever you got and move on. So
yeah, so that's you provided some critical feedback, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That should be one of the stories you tell as you talk about how you've mentored and trained and helped other people. Right.
I just want to add, changing topics really quick here, because I did take a note on this, and I just want to make sure you got it. Was that when asking about, how to increase your time, you said automate, and then what I heard was when it came to the prioritization, that was the first thing you deprioritized, and that to me is a red flag. To me, the first thing that we do is automate in order to save time, and being able to express that and articulate that upwards, either through reporting metrics or just examples and stories, is far more value than deprioritizing that, because then you just sound like you're contradicting yourself. And maybe it's a language thing, or maybe I heard it differently, but it is something that I would want to needle down into and find out, like, okay, if that is so important, why is that also the first thing that you're deprioritizing?
Yeah, I caught that also. That was also what I was looking for when I talked about that agile transition. We know that we get less time. We know that we miss things. What I was looking for were more strategies to account for that anyway.
Right. So how are you collecting that tech debt? Are you opening up tickets? Are you then reflecting back? Or, here are the bugs that we know are going to go live with, and they're going to be groomed into the first or the next iteration. And, what percentage of tech debt do we take into our backlog? And does everybody on the team know through that transitional process of waterfall to agile what all of that means? We didn't have time to touch on the ceremonies, but I would want to know how you participate in stand-ups and groomings and retros, and not necessarily from the Scrum mastering standpoint, but just as an active participant, as a technical lead, or as a people lead, is still something that I find very useful in understanding what my folks are doing, which then reserves that one-on-one time for more of what they want to be doing.
Yeah, and again, I would look into again, look at other resources, see how other people have solved this problem, right?
Yes.
Maybe you've done that, maybe you haven't, but being able to talk about it is useful.
Awesome. Also, I want to point it out, candidate one, there is a comment in the chat from Chris Winggood. And Chris actually is one of our QA managers who were participating in our previous session. And he also pointed out pretty good, valid, that your role is basically wearing multiple hats, right? So it's better to separate jobs in your resume instead of showing it as a one. So which is confusing. And I think this is why it's getting confused, and why you don't get that much feedback from potential employers. And yeah, just check Chris in the chat comment. It's valid, really. I mean, and Chris, we're gonna have another meetup with you as well. Chris is a QA manager from Prodigy, and thank you for this comment. Another thing, guys, Ken and Jeremiah, we have a question in the Q&A section. So what do you usually expect during the first 3 months from new hires? And I guess we can address this question as for new QA managers, and maybe for IC, individual contributors as well. What do you think?
Interesting. Okay.
What I do. Can I see you jogging your memory there? So I typically lay out a 30, 60, 90. So first 30 days, get to know the team, get to know the product, understand who are the players, and what value they provide, and build those relationships. Take people out to lunch and be the first one to give, and hope that they reciprocate, but don't expect them to. And that, I think, has really helped me, get in the foot into the door into some of those product areas that maybe developers and QAs have been nervous about or don't know. And it's like, get personal with them in those first 30 days, and then springboard that into the next 30 days. And so now you're looking at the 60-day model of, okay, I want you to start seeing tickets on your board and see what kind of interaction, and you'll find that those first 30 days of building those relationships, now you know who to go to for those tickets, and just using your own skill set and expertise, and depending on where one is, you'll be able to apply your knowledge. And then by 90 days, really autonomous and doing, knowing what to pick and pluck from the backlog, and what you're putting time in on, and knowing still from those first 30 days what relationships you're building, and then do it again. the next 30 days after that. So now 120 days, who else do I need to know? Are there C-level people? Are there, frontline people and customer support or sales folks that are going to give me data points? And you actually did mention that. And that would be a point of kudos is, definitely collaborate with the non-technical folks that are in the product realm, because they're going to know the workarounds. So they're going to know where the bodies are buried. And they don't necessarily know how to articulate that to an engineering team. So Ken, anything to add?
So I've actually changed this several times from company to company as to how I approach this. It definitely depends on the role. If it's a managerial role, a lot of things Jeremiah mentioned would be around, get to know the team, understand the existing process, find out where the problems are, make your connections, and then let's start having our one-on-ones within the first week to understand what you've discovered, and then coach them through what strategies they want to take and ideas that they might have. An individual contributor, I usually put a lot of effort in spreading out the ability to ramp up someone to all the individual team members. And so usually there's a fair bit of documentation, there's guidance that I provide, and then they're immediately partnered with someone. And typically they are starting that work within that first week that they're on board. Barring no technical problems with their computers, we get them in all the systems within the first day or two. And usually by the end of the week, they've started writing their first test scenarios or conducting their first tests, depending on kind of what the time schedule looks like. But yeah, I'm all for getting people working as quickly as possible. So that's usually what I do. So in other companies, we have 30-day, 90-day reviews. I haven't actually done that in the last 2 or 3 companies I worked with, I think. You start getting assessed every week because we meet every week. And if it's not going well, we know early. You don't have to wait for a 30-day review to figure out that something needs to adjust.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Kennedy, now you have opportunity to ask more questions. And I guess, guys, this is a slowly transition to the question how do I transition from IC role to managerial role, right? Kennedy, number one.
Yeah. So as you said, in tight timeline, looking for the strategies. So I'm just thinking, can you give me some example, what strategy we can come
for agile or for
agile? If there is a very tight timelines and we could not finish the work, what kind of strategy we can come? So I answer missing some test cases or pushing out the automation.
Sure. So I usually, I would put it on 2 primary points. One, I make the assumption that no one's interested in quality until it's missing. Therefore, everything that's related to quality that I want to get done, I have to try to align it to the other goals the other team members have, whether you're development or product. And that's typically, how do I release the product faster? So as I look for automation solutions, as I look for solutions to test plans and time, I all look at how do we get feedback to the engineers faster, and how do we simplify their ability to release. And when those things are in line, oh, well, if you want to do continuous deployment, well, it turns out you need to have a good automation infrastructure. Oh, and it turns out to have a good automation infrastructure, you need to have good process around what happens during the sprint. And oh, it turns out if you want to have good process in the sprint, you need very good specifications. So I guess we need to put quality all the way back up in the front with a grooming session to make sure you actually get good specs. And by the way, our test plans have to be written and everybody has to agree that's what they're doing, because those are the specs that the devs are going to implement. So if you get it wrong there, you will get the thing you don't want at the other end. So
yeah, and test plans for me are really much like articles of clothing. They should cover the topic, but keep it interesting. And sometimes we get 35-page test plans in an agile shop, and that's a no-go. We plan for the sprint. We're a 2-week sprint here, and so with the story points already on the ticket, often those story points don't include my QA time, right? I have a separate estimate entirely, and my dev manager and I have a pretty good relationship where we know that we're baking in some quality time there anyway. And like, again, automation will certainly help facilitate that delivery. But if you're the one person that is responsible for the automation, the DevOps, and the release process, that's 3 different unique roles. And if you're going to do that, that's fine. Just identify it as such and make sure that you're supporting each one in its entirety. So the one thing that Ken said that struck a chord with me was, your engineering folks need to have that focus to engineer. And if they're more worried about releasing, and releasing is a huge part of what we do, right? So the more velocity we have, the more often we release, and the more successful those releases are great metrics to reflect quality. But an engineer that has to worry about, did I write the right code for the product? Will that code now be deployed through the CI/CD mechanisms in a way that reflects correctly in production? And do we have some kind of acceptance criteria around that in production? It is usually not their responsibility. It's the team's responsibility. And being able to draw metrics out that then reflect that up is what really helps not only reflect that quality, but when there isn't quality, when there's something broken, how quickly do we fix it? How quickly can we get something about in production? Does it take a turning the Titanic in order to fix a bug? Or is it, let's just get into production and fix it, or put it behind a flag, or, roll it back? And making a rollback decision is something that I've had to do. And even in my current organization, people kind of look sideways, like, what do you mean roll it back? Like, yes, we're losing money, we're impacting customer experience. This is not ready for prime time. And having to explain that to the C-levels is my responsibility.
Yeah, so something else that I like, behavior-driven development methodology. Not necessarily the language, but the methodology around it is very agile. It's very best practice for high-performing teams. I would read as much as you can about that. You can't always implement that 100%, but there are lots of gems in there that really boil down to a whole team responsibility, a whole team commitment to quality. Comes out of a lot of that philosophy. And where you can introduce that, a lot of times you can get a lot of gains. But it really just boils down to finding ways to make the things that are important to you as a quality manager important to everyone.
Right, and you had mentioned
they're going to ignore you.
Yeah, that you want it to be collaborative. But when I asked you who those players you're collaborating with, they were all engineering and devs. I didn't hear product or UI or support or other people that are going to be impacted if there is a lack of quality. Because like Ken said, it's only when it's not present that does somebody say, well, who tested this?
I've definitely had experiences where, quality had a problem with test environments, but devs tested on their machine, so it wasn't an issue, right? From their perspective, and there was not resources to address it. So again, another one of the things is, well, what problems are developers having? Oh, well, they aren't, they have big commits, they have this, they have that. You see the engineering problems that they're having, and then you rope the solution in that relieves their pain into something else that you need. And every time you relieve their pain, they're always very much in support of that.
And ultimately, because they want to be engineering and developing, they typically don't want to be, figuring out how to get their release into production, right? So that's an entire, in my mind, it is a different job function. Though there are folks that are very good at it, they are sort of the unicorns in my world, anyway.
Also, distraction. So when you have a collaborative team with multiple disciplines, people get bottlenecked all over the place, and they trouble engineering all the time. So often that's the Scrum Master's job to try to address, but you can leverage that individual very much so, because they have visibility to all the problems and you can see how they overlap. When people don't talk, and it sounds like you've been in a pretty healthy environment where people are very collaborative and they speak to each other, a lot of places are siloed. And so, speaking to how you get past those silos, or how you work across departments that maybe don't have a close relationship but should, that makes you more valuable in an organization, and that sort of T-shape in your approach to management than you otherwise would be.
We have another interesting comment from Chris, and he's saying that it's pretty hard to move from IC to management in the same within the same organization. And the first point that IC you can do very well, but management is very different, right? And I think from upper management, this is a hesitation because on the one side they can lose a great contributor if he's great, and maybe he won't be a good manager. But at the same time, the second point was like, and I like this point, that peers still see you as an IC, right? And it's very hard to change their relationship to you. So this is interesting. And right, like consider to change the team or the organization. And I think that's it's also
that was my experience into managementship, being promoted for being very good at QA and automation and building frameworks. And my team, through a couple of years of really poor management on my behalf, suffered because of that. I was doing their work for them, and it wasn't until that I had a mentor or a leader or a senior VP come on board and ask me, "What am I doing?" That's the old job. Here's the new job. And I think I would have appreciated actually managing a separate team than the team that I was working with before, because that would have helped me, really take on the management role versus just continuing to be a high functioning IC and also having to do one-on-ones and reviews, which is what my perception of management was at the time, right? And so it wasn't until I stopped doing the job that I was promoted to do that I actually started to manage.
Yeah, my journey, I was much more fortunate in the organization. I was in Adobe, and they had a management track program. So, I had wanted to move into management and do management quite some time, but I didn't get into that management program until I was already a manager, until I got promoted. So I'll kind of start with two spots of that. With the first part, to get around the people seeing as an IC, when there was an opportunity to move into management, I actually went and talked to each of my team members and got their feedback on what they thought is me potentially becoming their manager and what it is that they were looking for in the manager that they would have and sort of what their struggles were and how I might help with them. For lack of a better word, it wasn't really so much campaigning for myself as it was really understanding the team and things that I wouldn't have necessarily known about the way things operate as an IC. That helped me make that transition quite well. I think two other people were promoted at the same time. And they struggled with that individual contributor piece, whereas because I talked to them like, well, they didn't really want me to do their work. Obviously, what they wanted was, how do I get my promotion? How do I get my next raise? I have an interest in this area. I don't have opportunity for it. I don't understand why some people get promoted and others don't. I don't understand the direction of the organization. Like, you find out there's a lot of things that people need to be fulfilled at their job that aren't necessarily being fulfilled. And the easiest way for you to move into a management role is to focus on that.
Yeah, get to know their purpose and what really excites them about the work. I think that was a big pivot for me from IC to manager was, I already knew them from working shoulder to shoulder, but I really didn't know them. Like, what their aspirations were. I knew that they were in QA, I was in QA, and we were testing similar software, and it was cool and great. And now I'm their manager, and it took a few years to understand that they didn't necessarily know the company's purpose or goals or, and making that clear to them really gave them direction and helped me move to the next step and be less of a manager by title, but more of a manager in function.
Yeah,
awesome.
Take an opportunity to get a management course that you can refer to, preferably one that is full of other people with managers. One of the things that I liked about my management course, it took place over 8 months, and you did a week offsite over a course of 8 months. So that's hard to find, but where the value came in is that there were people with more management experience that I got to talk to every week. There were people who could describe how they started, the problems they had to deal with, the various situations that I had yet to experience at the middle of their career, towards the end of their career, when they're very senior, and at the beginning. That is everything. You can learn from their experience, and you can come out the gate doing a much better job.
And I would also recommend finding a mentor. Be open to being a mentee, being open to learning about it. And I've been at places where they assigned me a mentor. I thought that was a little presumptuous. because it should be someone that you really look up to and want to grow up and be like. And so and at the same token, you should be. People should want to come to you to be mentored as well. And it's, you can't you push yourself onto someone like, hey, you're going to learn from me. That's a great way to set yourself up for failure. But if you can inspire them through the work, your words, your experiences, you'll find people coming out of the woodwork to know more about you and how that aligns with what they want and how you can empower them to do that. And then, of course, I see it as this cyclical kind of thing.
Yeah. And actually, you bring me back to the question that I asked about mentoring versus coaching. So I think you described coaching as someone who teaches. I would say just the opposite. The coach is someone who helps the individual go in the direction that they want to go. They have no influence over what that direction is. And they're not necessarily there to answer any of their questions. They're there to ask questions and to help them find the answers for themselves. That's a very different role. You can coach somebody in something you have no expertise in.
The biggest thing
is actually very directed.
Yes, exactly. And I actually did take that very same napkin. And when I coach, it is very question, and I talk a lot and talk over people. So I have to mentally tell myself, I'm going to give this person 30 seconds to answer. Even if we sit here in awkward silence for 20 seconds, that last 10 seconds of what they're going to say is a deep thought that they really have trouble expressing. And so if I talk over that, I'm not helping the situation, so I'm not, there are times to tell stories and there are times to ask the question. And
yeah, you will get employees who are like, hey, I want to transition out of QA into, design. I don't do design. I have some knowledge of design, but how do I coach your career direction if I need to have all the answers to help you when I have none?
Here's our lead designer. Set up a half an hour with them, and I want people who want to be doing quality. If you want to do product design or engineering, come in through quality. That's awesome. That's a great foundation for those areas, and I will help you get there. That's my job as a manager, right? As somebody, like, if I ask the question, well, I don't even want to be doing this job. Well, you're on the team. We're going to continue doing this job, but what do you want to do? Oh, I want to design. Awesome. Here's our lead designer, or here's a UX person, or here's, because CSS, HTML, sure. Okay. But it's not my wheelhouse, but I do know whose wheelhouse it is. And they have the same feeling about UI and UX that I have about QA.
All right, let's get one more question and let's wrap it up. And guys, I want to send a poll. So when I launch the poll, just answer this question and that's it. Candidate number one, do you have one more question for us?
Yeah, so as Krish mentioned, regarding the multiple heads and mentioning as a different job, so it was not like officially like one release, they created a group of 2 people and say, okay, we need help, and somebody volunteered to manage this release. So that's the way we did it. So can we still go and mention on the resume as a separate job, because it was like just one release?
So it sounds like you're describing sort of giving someone an opportunity to try something out. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah. So for example, working as a QA, but at the same time, you need somebody to volunteer for helping in the release manager. So then you volunteer for one release. Similarly, in the product management, you help somebody to write a PRD. So that giving you an opportunity to learn, but can we mention on the resume as a separate job?
You can. I mean, when someone says, what do you want to do and why do you want to do it? Being able to speak to, hey, I had this experience and that really resonated with me. And so here's what I've done to learn more about that. And here's what I've done to position myself for that. And here's what I'm looking for. Here's why I think I would be good for it. Right. That's just another nugget of evidence.
Yeah. And I've done a solution delivery role where, managing production application support, release management, quality assurance. And, one thing that I've always said is that all of that falls under the quality umbrella. It's not that, when I'm giving feedback on a PRD, I'm functioning as a product manager or a product person. I'm coming at it from the QA angle So that way, in order to improve the product and making it more of a collaborative conversation is here, when I worked with product, here's how I was able to inject quality by leaning left, by adding, questions around automation and what should be in my test plan, or, and same with releases, right? So, oh, they needed help doing releases. Okay, well, where is that? Is it a technical need? Is it something that, WinZip could solve, or do we need, Circle CI and a whole Docker Kubernetes solution? And if so, I know enough to know I need somebody for that.
I have an experience I provided for a team of QA that I had. They were actually all quality engineers, and they were in a gaming company, and they were desperate to work on gaming code, desperate to release something, and felt very stifled by the fact that they weren't allowed to do that. So we had a game we were sunsetting and arranged for them to do the final release of that game. They all had to pick a role: product, server engineer.
That's empowerment. Nice. Right? Yeah.
And it was a great experience that many of them all suffered through. The client engineer who thought she was very good got to figure out what it was like to work with somebody else's terrible code. The server side engineer who was very good in the product role was desperately upset because he wasn't allowed to just go in and make changes that he wanted to. He had to figure out how to get these things to the team and manage the schedule. And the server engineer, having to work and collaborate. Like they got to experience what it was like to be that team during the release and filling all those roles. Good experience for them. One of them definitely decided he never wanted to do product management ever, but he had tremendous empathy for product and understand what it was like to be them. And so his relationship with product was different from that point forward. Right.
Great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And guys, 2 more questions we just got in Q&A section and in the chat. Let's start with the Q&A. Would you consider a better fit for QA position if you have to choose a candidate with CS degree versus the candidate with a QA experience?
Depends entirely on what I need the person to do.
Amen. And I think that folks that don't have the experience but have the degree maybe need to have more shoulder time where we're sitting next to each other, not necessarily micromanaging, because that's in my mind not a great method of management. But when somebody is new to the position but has the technical skill set, I've learned most of what I've learned from doing, and I don't have a degree in CS, but I write code. I deploy code. I've hired people that have those degrees and know the value that they add for the roles that I may need. But counter to that are the people who are just, autodidactic and learn themselves and know what they want to do and are very excited about doing it. And, the formal education process is one that has evolved over a long time and in ways that maybe don't benefit all of the people that it should. And so I know that when I'm looking to fill a role, I'm looking for the right skill set, but also the right individual. And maybe that's somebody with a college degree or maybe not. But I definitely am more cognizant of some of the things that as a manager we should be for, as a QA, if I'm not inclusive, if I don't include everybody's opinion, I'm left-handed. When I use an iPhone and the screen doesn't flip the right way because I'm using my left hand, I am so annoyed. I'm like, that's a bug. Why didn't somebody write that? And it's because they probably didn't hire anybody left-handed. And so the more broad a team I can find for testing a product, typically the better questions are asked. And so it's, there's no clear answer from me on whether the degree or not degree.
Yeah, I tend to look for potential more than an exact fit, because potential means you're getting something out of this opportunity and not just being exploited for the skill sets that you have and immediately pigeonholed. So the less experience you have, the more interesting your degree might be. The more experience you have, the projects and how you can describe and articulate that experience is more important to me. I've worked with people who were fantastic QAs who made it all the way to management who never got a college degree of any kind. I've worked with developers who got their degree in architecture. I've worked with people whose primary background was music. Where they can, they marry their loves into the work that they do in a software role. But people find their ways to you for all different reasons, not just for others, but for yourself. You recognize career isn't a ladder so much as it is a jungle gym. and people move around and do different things. It's how that is brought to the table on the team that makes all the difference in the world.
And by the way, do you have a CS degree?
Me?
Yes.
My Bachelor of Science is in technical writing, and that science portion was computer science.
Okay. So
I have a Bachelor of Science, but an English degree.
So many great QAs have come out of the communications practices and stuff, and I think it is very important to what we do.
Yeah, my degree is in finance, not in computer science. Anyway, the second question and the last, let's wrap it up. But this is interesting. Do you have any thoughts on career switchers getting the first interview for the entry level? The guy is a senior accountant, and it seems for him that it's difficult to get the first interview and going to this career path.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. I'll probably ask a question like, what have you done to make yourself look attractive for QA? The last person I know that switched out of an unrelated career, he interviewed at the company I work at now and was rejected, and said he's going to go take some classes. Can he interview again? And that was his way of being able to demonstrate his knowledge. And then he actually made it through the interview process to start his QA career. That's the route he took. Another route I would recommend is, you have a background in accounting, you say it was. So why don't you look for accounting companies or companies that are doing accounting work and be a QA there. A QA, in one sense, at some level, is a professional user.
Yeah,
if you are familiar with their product, you are an attractive candidate.
Amen. In my experience, we had an internship program for engineering, but they didn't actually offer that to any QAs. And so at the organization, I said, well, let's open that up to QAs. And we got a handful of, senior, college students and CS degree people. And that was great. And we also had a couple of candidates that had never done QA, that they came from a completely different background. And one of them that we actually did hire on crushed it. He did the work that was needed to learn the skills. He had the opportunity and he showed that potential. The hunger that I knew somebody who wasn't, currently in this role, but wanted it and could do it. The internship gave me that window of opportunity. And none of the other interns actually transitioned to a full-time role. A lot of them went back to school for their senior year, but this individual stayed on and is now at an SDET level because he's kept up that learning aspect. I think if you can find an organization that has an emphasis on learning, I think that is a very good sign of an organization that will be successful.
Yeah, that's always good. Also, not everybody, QA can often be an entry-level role. And you can absolutely get a QA job having never done it before. What they're looking for often is that cultural fit within the company. So doing your research on the company beforehand, sometimes you can talk your way in because you align your purpose, you align it to their mission statement, you align it to other things. And they're one of those organizations where, hey, we got a lot of work to do. We need a lot of bodies. We'll take anybody. They exist. And so how they pick when, they're willing to take someone with no experience is how well you're going to fit in. So sort of positioning yourself for that can make a big difference.
Yeah, doing the research on the company and marketing yourself to them is key when you're the one out looking, and looking for what you want to do. Like if you want to work for a specific industry or area, and you know that you're not, technically equipped maybe, but you want to transition into something new. I've definitely helped people come into the technical area and then use it as that stepping stone into engineering or product. And it's awesome because I also know then that I've been able to bake a little bit of my QA philosophies into them, and seeing that carry through the product or engineering is a cool thing.
And ping your network for people who do QA. Ask them about that specifically in that organization. Not all organizations are the same. So I'll give you a bit of a warning. I transitioned to the game industry, and I discovered at the company I was at, they were doing quality assurance. At quite a few other more traditional gaming companies, they were doing quality control.
And that's often an interview question I ask. I've worked at AAA companies, and it was the start of my career. And, and I'm Glad I'm not there now.
That could be stifling, right? That can actually, kind of cripple your career before it starts. And I've seen that happen to people where they're game testers, and so they didn't ever develop all the formal skills they need. And so the game's laying everybody off, as they do, and trying to get a role outside of gaming is an uphill climb. And they technically have a title and experience, supposedly, but they're coming in with that huge bias because the rest of the industry recognizes that, yeah, sorry, Sony Gaming doesn't produce good QA, right? So, you actually have an advantage against those folks.
Yep.
If that helps.
Speaking of community, join to the Slack channel that I just posted, and Chris just actually also posted a job opening that they have in Prodigy. So check this out. And guys.
Oh yeah, Chris, that's a great comment. Poaching people internally. I'm guilty. When I find somebody, as I've been in finance for a while, at a frontline bank, but wants to be in tech, a lot of internal interviews and like, why is this interesting to you? Is it just because you're tired of the role you're in, or do you really understand what we do and want to provide value in this role? So, I've had VPs come tell me like, stop taking my people and stop hiring good people. This is what they want to do, and we work together to help them get there. So that's a great point. Yeah, internally as well. If you're not in a role, but you're at an accountant firm and you know what the tech stack is and what they're doing, go to their desks and ask them, or call them up on a Zoom or a chat nowadays and say, hey, I see you're doing this QA thing. It's interesting to me. What is it that your day-to-day looks like?
Yep. And absolutely join to Slack channel. We have a lot of folks. We just ask questions and people will answer you. Anyway,
yeah, you'd be surprised. Everybody wants to show off what they know.
Yep. Exactly. This is what we actually do right now, right?
I know for me, it's a little hit of dopamine every time I get the answer right on Jeopardy. So whenever, I can answer something and somebody says, yay, that's right. I feel good about myself and sharing my experience and knowledge. So.
Right. Anyway, guys, that was a great today's session. I think it was a lot of insights. Personally, I got a lot of insights, and I think, and our anonymous brave candidate got a lot of insights. Kudos for him for doing this, because it's really you need to have a gut like to do this in front of other people. But keep your eyes open on our Slack channel, YouTube, and meetup group. We're going to have the next mock interview session within next month, and I'll see you guys there. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you,
Marina. Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you. Yep.
Take care, everyone. Good luck.
All right. Cheers. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.